Welcome, everyone, to the Rotary Club of Tulsa. So glad that you're all here. This is a club where a bunch of good people come together and do great things in our city and around the world. I got to let you know I just came back from the International Convention, and once again I'm charged up and ready to go. It is amazing how similar this club is to Rotary International. The structure, the people, the heart, the works, everything is so similar. So I really want to let you hear their message, and it is think globally and act locally. So let's put that service together. Turn and say hi to somebody you haven't met yet today. Okay, what a great time this afternoon. It's wonderful to hear all the chatter. But let's go ahead and get started. We have a great program today, and we want to give Dino plenty of time. So let's start with our invocation, who will be given by Past President Matt Davis. Song and pledges by Michelle Place, and visitor introductions by Luann Buehlinger. Matt?
Will you pray with me? Dear Lord, thank you for our many blessings and for the opportunity to help others through Rotary. As we gather here today in fellowship, we ask that you be with those less fortunate. We pray for the leaders of our city and country and for their wise use of the power that comes with their position. We pray for those serving in harm's way to preserve our freedom and for their safe return to family and loved ones here at home. As our state leaders struggle with finding ways to fund public education in Oklahoma, let us be mindful of the need to open children's hearts and minds to the plight of those less fortunate so that they may become servant leaders and make a difference in the lives of others. Bless this food and the nourishment of our bodies and us to thy service. Amen.
Well, it's a beautiful day in Tulsa, so let's sing America the Beautiful. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Tulsa. We're happy to have you here today. Now's the time when we introduce our guests, so when you hear your name, please stand up or wave your hand really high so that we can all get a good look at you. First up, Catherine DeCamp has brought with her Terrell Miles, Matthew Lurkey, and Emeka Naka. All right. Bob Steers has brought Susanna Rusco. Welcome. Kathy Gurrell has brought Tom Lukock, who's retired from Occidental. Welcome. Jesse Guardiola has brought Lucia Caballo. Philip Viles has brought H. Wayne Cooper, who's an attorney with Derner and Saunders, and Amanda Viles with the OSU Foundation. Tiffany Egdorf has brought Janice Navarro with St. Francis. Tim Colwell has brought Alicia Richardson with Williams. Tom Klinda has brought Kevin Hearn, who's running for Congress, Johnny Mayer, and Chrissy Leota. And then from Tulsa Sunrise, we have a visiting Rotarian, so let's welcome him with a hello Rotarian, Philip Jackson. Hi, Philip. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Luann. Very good job. One of the interesting things that we did at the conference, Mike and Kathy and I think Becky was there too, we took a class in Tai Chi Cha. And it's a meditation type of movements, and it's about movements. And we were laughing because they said, you know, it's very important that you get people active. And said a good way to do that is to have them stand and sit and raise their arms and maybe even sing. And I thought, man, we're getting her done in our club. So we're being healthy and we don't know it. I want to recognize our sponsors today. We have two of them, Chuck Wilson from Associated Mortgage Corp. And Bill Richard from Richard Properties. Let's give them a big hand. As always, we request and should be honored to do business with your fellow Rotarians. You can look them up on DACDB or on the internet, or just meet them in a meeting and get to know what they do. So we also had a lot of people that helped put on this program. Their names are on the screen, so let's give them our appreciation as well. We have one very important committee meeting today. It's for IBA Awards. If you want to know what's going on, buy a ticket. It's in room 233. The event is Monday night. We're so excited. There are a few tickets available. It should be a great, great program. And I know for a fact there are 3 or 4 things that you will not ever see again that are really unique to this IBA Awards banquet. So please buy your tickets and support the club in that way. We have a red badge introduction today, and Robert Jones is joining our club today. John DeBar is going to do his introduction, and I also want to thank John for doing the new member orientation. Robert is a young man that I met at Camp Enterprise, and I nagged him until he joined the club, but that's another example where members come to you connecting through service.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce our newest member, Robert Jones. He will be known as Robert. All you available and eligible ladies, listen up. Robert is single. Where art thou? He is a suitor. He graduated from Jenks High School, where he was voted as most flirty, I believe he told me. He then moved on to OSU, sorry Ed, where he got a degree in finance. He pledged the Phi Kappa Alpha fraternity, where he was their social chairman. Social committee, hint, hint. He is an Eagle Scout from Ron Schaefer's Troop 26. He works currently in banking with First Oklahoma Bank, doing commercial lending. He received his certified financial planning from NSU. We want to welcome you to the club, Robert. Here's your red badge, which I know you'll wear proudly, your Rotary pin, and your 4-way test. Please welcome Robert Jones.
Well, I've got several ladies in mind for Robert, but I can't give you my daughters anymore. They're both gone. My son's an Eagle Scout as well, and congratulations on that. That's not a minor deal. My son at 17 was really close, and the scout leader said that fumes get you at 17. Car fumes, perfumes, stuff like that. So congratulations for finishing out. We have a couple of announcements today. There's a unique program next week. It's Steak Day. If you want to participate in a meal, you need to sign up on the sign-up sheets on your tables. If you want to bring a guest, you need to do that as well. We will run out of steak if you don't sign up. It should be a great program. I know every year the roast is always a lot of fun, but it's always fun to look back at the club over the year as well. It's the transition program, and of course, the week after that, we'll bring in Mike as the new president. Cards are on your table for Rotarian Alex Martinez and his wife, Sunny. She was involved in a pretty severe car accident. She is actually quite lucky to still be here, but her injuries in perspective are minor, so she'll be getting out of the hospital soon. But be sure and keep that family in your prayers. I think they've kind of realized they dodged a bullet, and they're really fortunate to still be here and together. A little bit of an RI convention update. I think we have a video to show you. It was a really great convention, as I mentioned before. Having gone to 2 in a row, I think the breakout sessions and the general sessions in this convention were just absolutely fantastic. We also had a good contingency from our club. We had 5 people there. That's a record that I can remember, and we all had a pretty good time. There was also 115 from our district that went, so that was a very highly attended conference, and I got to see a lot of people that I knew from the district and other clubs and some former members, and it was really a good time. But let's go ahead and roll this video.
Crushed polio in the Americas, you crushed polio in the Western Pacific, you crushed polio in Europe, then polio fought back hard. So you needed to bring more muscle into the game. Bill Gates came on board.
15 years after their first $1 million donation to Rotary, the Gates Foundation will increase its contribution to $100 million per year over the next 3 years.
Over the 3 years, 450 million? That's going to get it done. All right.
For Gates, getting involved in polio eradication was simple. It's an achievable goal, and he wholeheartedly believes that no children should suffer from this preventable disease.
Polio has been my top priority for a decade now.
Every morning I get up and look to see, did we go another day without cases? Last year we got down to less than 40 now, just a handful this year.
By definition, polio is a highly infectious disease that invades the nervous system and can lead to paralysis and sometimes death. It most commonly strikes children under the age of 5.
Authorities were elated that the youngsters took to the immunization plan.
In the 1950s, it was one of the most feared diseases in the U.S., causing more than 15,000 cases each year. Today, fewer than 40 cases remain globally, and this disease has been reduced to just 3 countries.
Polio has been eradicated in the Americas for quite some time. Why is it so important to get to this last 0.1%?
Well, as we succeed with this, not only will it help polio, but it'll be so uplifting. The ambition to say to people, now let's go after malaria, we really can't do that until we show we can get this one done. So it's one of the greatest projects I've ever had a chance to be part of.
What personally will it mean to you when you get to 0? I'm not even going to say if, I'm going to say when.
No, I agree. I'm going to keep working on it, but because this one has been so tough, required so much persistence, there's so much of a benefit to it, it will be emblematic that, hey, the world is getting better. When you cooperate, amazing things.
That was a great presentation, and it's you know, we sat there and we watched Rotarian after Rotarian come forward. Bill Gates is a Rotarian. Senna is an honorary Rotarian. Jack Nicklaus is an honorary Rotarian. Ashton Kutcher was there. You cannot believe the company that we're keeping to eradicate polio and to do good works around the world. So it's really a humbling event to attend and to realize that you're part of something that's much, much bigger than we are. And it makes you feel very warm that Bill Gates, this is his top priority. I mean, this is a man that could make anything his top priority, and this is his top priority. So he matched 2 or 3 to 1. I've lost track of how much money he's given, but it's got to be close to $1 billion now. So that's a very significant contributor. The other touching story that I saw, very moving, is they had a goal to eradicate polio, $1.4 billion to finish. They raised, at the conference, with connections and confirmations they received, $1.2 billion. So they're almost there. And I've got a little update on Bob McKenzie later that I'll give you in his efforts to help with that. At this time, I'd like to call Donna forward. Donna Mercier's our former executive director. She served for 13 years in that capacity. We recently transitioned in March. Most of you know that through an announcement, but she's here before our club today. I wanted to honor her. She gave me a little bio, and I learned some things about Donna that I didn't know. I knew she'd been widowed, but I didn't know it had been since 1984. She has 2 children, Daniel and Deborah, and they moved from Houston to Tulsa as children, and Daniel began his junior high school here. Her son earned a degree eventually from Georgia Tech and is now a design engineer for a medical firm in Boulder, Colorado. Remember, Colorado. And is married to Lisa, and she has 2 grandchildren through him, Kylie and Zachary. Her daughter is a National Merit Scholar and a Presidential Scholar, and earned her bachelor's at TU in law. degree from Boston. She's currently a compliance counselor with Lender Live in Colorado. So Deborah became engaged in Rob Finley this May. Donna's mother, Carol Bean, celebrated her 94th birthday earlier this year and continues to live independently in Tulsa. I think Donna's dream was to play out her mother's eventual life, if we can say that politely and with affection. She didn't want to move from Tulsa, so Donna has roots in Tulsa because of her mother, but I just understand that she's kind of relinquished and might be moving to Colorado with all the grandchildren and children. So we're very happy for you in that. I know you've been working. During her time at the Rotary Club at Tulsa, Donna, and she just listed 3 things, she's done 1,000 things, but the things that she's proud of is she expanded the foundation fundraising to include a legacy planning giving program. At a time when we were pitiful at communicating and technology, she transitioned us to DACDB Online for our membership system, and then she also established the Club Foundation donor record system. You may not realize it, but Donna is an accomplished vocalist. If I'd have known that, we'd have had you sing today, and has a soft spot for any type of live environment. That I know because I've seen her face when we have the live environment here. But although she's partial to the fine arts, she can be found at football, basketball, and hockey games, and she's not quiet. So we have some slides to roll, so please help me in recognizing Donna for her 13 years of service to this club as our executive director. I kind of was involved in making Donna cry once already this year. We went to the district conference in the fall and I didn't realize she wasn't a Paul Harris Fellow. So at that time we made Donna a Paul Harris Fellow, and she about fell on the floor. So today we're going to see her fall to the floor because, Donna, we're going to make you an honorary member of the Rotary Club. So here's your pin and your temporary honorary badge, and we wanted to give you the 4-way test because we know you know it, but you're going to be around people that might not, okay? And then we have a parting gift for you that will help you get back and forth to your children. We hope that you also appreciate that. Thanks again, Donna.
Thank you so much.
And we look forward to your membership transfer to a club in Denver. At this time, I'd like to call up Catherine DeCamp. She's our Sergeant at Arms, raising money for the community fund.
For just one more week.
Oh, crying.
I'm gonna miss you guys. Wait, was that because you're glad I'm going, or was that like? I tell you what, you guys are a tough crowd. Okay, well, let's just get to it. I'm going to start out by saying that my daughter's 15 and a half, and she met Robert a few weeks ago, and I haven't heard anything except I want to know more about him. So I said, go to Camp Enterprise. Okay, we're going to start out with Stephen Robards. Where's Stephen? This awesome guy said, hey, I'm going to send in a call to action because I'm going to guess he's connected with the Rotary Grants Committee because he sent a slide. People, if you want to help your sergeant out, create your slide and send it because that was awesome. He created this great slide to try to encourage you all to be a part of our grants, to be part of that committee. So think about it. Sign up today. So thank you very much, Stephen, for that. Karen Keith and Michelle Place. They paid a fine of $100 because, for those of you who don't know, there is a new ride in an amusement park in France that is called the Driller, the Golden Driller. And so I'm going to read this really quickly to you. Is it Fraspartis? How do you? Okay, close enough. City Amusement Park in eastern France. They're going there because they're going to christen the extreme ride that was inspired by the Golden Driller. And they're going to attend a Rotary meeting in Baccarat. And also, if you notice there on the big driller, our driller, the paparazzi came to take pictures of them, and there's a guy laying on his back so that he can get the full driller behind them. So that's pretty cute. It is the second highest drop tower in France, and they said that if we could raise a $100 fine, that they will experience the ride firsthand. So do we have anybody who's willing to? Well, looky there. I should have said $1,000. Why? I should have started high. That was too easy. So thank you, Ms. Rentz. And I will expect you all to send me a picture of the ride, and then we will have our new Sergeant at Arms show that during his first meetings. So thank you very much for the fine, and enjoy your trip. Lynette Potter, who's seated right here in front of me, raise your hand, my dear. She gave a $50 fine because she has a new job and a new Rotary classification, because usually one goes with the other. And she said that when you asked her to be on the board and to be one of the directors, you said, but don't change jobs. And she paid the fine because she changed a job while you were still president. So thank you very much for your generous donation. She's now at Prime Lending and does home loans, so call her, check her out. Remember, do business with a Rotarian. And just a reminder of the calendar, you have one more week if you'd like to make a donation to moi. I'll do that in French, since, you know, with French is moi. That's right, so one more week. Now, to end, I'm going to say that at my table, I have 3 amazing guests that I invited. These people are the movers and the shakers in the inspirational speaking world in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's Terrell Miles, Emeka Naka, and Matthew Lurkey. So after the show, you all should go by and say hey to them and find out exactly what it is that they're speaking about. And then I'd also like to thank Jerry Dillon, because I understand that he has offered to do a half sponsorship for Emeka Naka to join our club. We've all been trying to get Emeka Naka to join this club for a long, long time. Now, I haven't asked Emeka this, but I'm sure that Emeka would be very open to someone sponsoring the other half. So if you're interested, check with me or the office, and we'll make sure that that happens. So thank you so much, Jerry. That's a great thing. And there are other people who probably should be in here too. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Catherine. Dino. Well, we appreciate it, and just so there's no confusion, the fines are really not to her, they're to the club foundation. So feel free to give a lot. Where are you at?
I'm going to reveal that next week. So just
Okay.
give like I don't have enough.
Okay.
And then I'll tell you next week.
You're chasing Matthew Bristow and you're close, right?
Oh.
No? Okay. Well, we'll see. It's always exciting to raise money for our club foundation and have a little fun at the same time. Now I'd like to introduce our Rotarian of the Day, Monica Martin. Monica is the Director of Development for Tulsa Day Center for the Homeless. She joined Rotary in August of 2016 and was a 2017 chair of the 4-way test competition this past year. If you'll recall, we got an award based upon an application using that program as an example. So great job. Born in California, Monica moved to Tulsa as a young girl and already had a heart for helping others. Her professional career includes stints with several nonprofits, Stand in the Gap, the Little Lighthouse, the American Heart Association's Heart Ball Director, and her current role as Development Director for Tulsa's Day Center for the Homeless. As an active member of Asbury United Methodist Church, as well as a member of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, she is also the membership chair for Mosaic, the Tulsa Regional Chamber's effort to promote diversity and inclusion in Tulsa. A Leadership Tulsa class of 54 graduate, Monica has been married for 25 years to her husband, Chris, and has a son, Connor, daughter, Lauren. Whether she's traveling around the world on the boat with her family, walking her dogs, or hanging out with friends and drinking wine, she always puts service above self. Help me welcome our fireside host extraordinaire and Rotarian of the Day, Monica Martin.
Good afternoon. Dino Lalli is an Emmy-nominated journalist, producer, and host, as well as the president of Clever Name Productions. Dino produces, co-hosts, and reports for Discover Oklahoma. Dino is also the associate producer on a documentary film called Remember the Sultana, about the worst maritime disaster in U.S. history. Dino is also the writer, producer, and host of an award-winning weekly show airing called Hollywood Spotlight. Over a 20-year period, Dino served as the award-winning entertainment director and film critic for 3 television stations. He is one of just a handful of entertainment reporters in the country ever to be nominated for an Emmy award, and several high-powered actors and the directors, such as Clint Eastwood and the late Robin Williams, used to call the various studios and request Dino to interview them because of his sense of humor and professionalism. Dino received his Bachelor of Arts degree in journalism, radio, TV, broadcasting from the University of Oklahoma in 1978. He and his wife, Larissa, have 3 children and attend Crossings Community Church. Fellow Rotarians, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce to you Dino Lalli.
Thank you, Monica. It's always a pleasure to come to Tulsa, period, but particularly to come to a Rotary luncheon. I have the privilege of talking to various Rotary luncheons across the state, so always have been very impressed with the work that they do, how they're embedded in the community, and they do put service first. With that in mind, all the people who are here as potential members, being from southeastern Oklahoma, McAllister, and I'm an Italian from there, let me just go ahead and tell you, you can either join or learn to walk without kneecaps. It's actually your choice. Don't let me come to your house. All right. You know, I've used that joke before. People came up afterwards and read, are you serious? No, I'm not serious at all. Discover Oklahoma promotes Oklahoma tourism by telling interesting stories about people, destinations, and tourist attractions in the state. A lot of the stories we do are locally owned restaurants, locally owned like a bed and breakfast, antique stores, and Oklahoma tourism-related businesses that the public can visit. Now, there are exceptions to that. Monica and I were talking earlier about, I kind of miss doing more people stories. One that comes to mind was, who here has ever heard of a lady named Wanda Jackson? Quite a few. An internationally renowned singer who was born and raised in Oklahoma, and there was a documentary that came out about 5-6 years ago called The Sweet Lady with the Nasty Voice. And we went to her house in Oklahoma City, and most times if we go to a restaurant to do a story or a bed and breakfast, the interview only takes about 12 minutes, and we can get the information that we need as an individual reporter to write the story. We interviewed Wanda, it was over an hour that we talked with her because she was just fascinating. This is a lady who, at the age of 16, was touring with a group of unknown musicians whose names were Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, and a guy named Elvis. So, I mean, she was fascinating. She had great stories. She and Elvis actually dated for a couple of years, and she told me one story. They were playing a matinee in Texas, I believe, a Saturday afternoon matinee, and Johnny Cash was actually out on the stage performing, and she was just watching from the wings because she was up next. Elvis came up behind her, and she said he didn't say anything for just a couple of, maybe 30 seconds, and just watching, and he leaned over and he said, if anyone out of this group's going to make it, it's going to be him. Which I love stories like that. One of the pleasures of working for Discover Oklahoma is I get to go do stories where I'm actually getting to do stuff that I consider to be almost a hobby. And a case in point is a story I did a couple years ago, and I use this story quite a bit because fly fishing to me is just a way to really let the stresses of the day fall by the side. And I did a story about fly fishing over at Weber's Falls on the Lower Mountain Fork. And I did bring that with me today, so I want you to take a look at this particular story.
A peaceful sound, a relaxing spot, and a sport as old as time. Fly fishing brings together the sound of water and a necessary balance between the rod, the cast, and the fly, with the hopes that a fish will strike.
It is truly a way that you can be outdoors and really thinking about and reacting to the natural world around you. In other words, the natural fish that are in the stream, the bugs that they eat, the weather, everything. It's just a good reason to get outside.
Admittedly, the winter can douse the enthusiasm to be outdoors, but while it may not be the best time to go swimming or boating, you can go fishing for trout because wintertime is the best season for it.
It is still the best kept secret of fly fishing. I guarantee you, you can come over the Illinois River today and catch more fish than you can in the hottest tourist, the prime time tourists on the Rio Grande River outside of Crete. The Wildlife Department has done such a great job of creating this kind of habitat and stocking these fish. They are dumping fish on top of fish in here. So it's not uncommon. I hear it all the time when people come to the Illinois River and have 30 fish days.
Not only is the lower Illinois River great for fly fishing, but the lower Mountain Fork is spectacular, followed by the Blue River. Mark says principally the main difference between regular fishing and fly fishing is, of course, the casting. And while I was thrown into the deep end, so to speak, on this day, I finally got the hang of it. But before that, Mark told me he does enjoy the investigative part of fly fishing.
Well, that's the whole basis, really, of fly fishing is matching that food source. And so that's half the fun for people to come out here. And like right now, if we don't see any particular aquatic insect activity above the surface, well, there's still a world underneath there of life and death and finding food sources. And with just a little bit of investigation, we can turn over some rocks or do a little bit of seining and see what the fish are eating and what's available to them. Exactly. That's what we encourage everybody to do, is take a little bit of time and just see what's going on.
And I love the scientific name for this is...
Turning over rocks.
There you go.
For the beginning fly fisherman, getting a solid base of information, doing some investigative work ahead of time, practicing your cast, along with reading the river, will certainly help your chances at reeling in some rainbow or brown trout. But remember, going back to nature, let me point out there really aren't any ugly places to go fly fishing, and nothing beats that moment when the trout takes the bite.
Excellent. Good job.
Now here's the other thing. It's like, how much do you fight with it? You just keep tension on the line?
Yeah, it's not a very big fish, so you're okay. Just bring him in gently, just like you're doing, and I'll pull the net out. We'll net this guy, this monster. You just caught, there we go. You just caught a little brown trout.
There you go.
You just got a brown.
I only get to go fly fishing maybe 3 or 4 times a year. I would love to be able to do more with 3 kids. My wife's a school teacher. My daughter just graduated from high school and starts college in the fall. And then tomorrow I start drinking heavily to prepare for that. I wish I could go more. Over the years, people ask, what's really the most fun that you get out of doing stories? And it sounds like a cliche, but it's very truthful when I say really it's meeting the people. I've met some fascinating people, Wanda Jackson being one of them. And I did a story in Chakotah where I didn't get to meet the individual, but the story was centered around him. Chakotah has a very small little museum there, and this new exhibit, it's a permanent exhibit, was really, it's the backbone of the museum. And with that, I want you to take a look at that particular story. At the corner of Enterprise Avenue and Paul Carr Drive in Chakotah sits the restored Katy Depot, and when you walk in...
Well, they're coming to the oldest building in Chakotah.
The depot used to be in another part of town and was to have been destroyed, but members of the Chakotah Landmark Preservation Society paid an incredible $10 for the building and moved it here.
What you see when you come is not only the oldest building, it's built in 1890, but everything in it is structurally is of that period.
And now the building houses memories from the depot's past, like the old ticket booth, as well as the scales where freight used to be weighed. There's even a tribute to Underwood. No, not that Underwood, the other Underwood, Carrie, Chakota's favorite daughter. There are mementos of an era when folks communicated by telegram instead of Instagram. But wait, let's back up a minute. Remember I said the depot was at the corner of Paul Carr Drive? There's a monument to him at the entrance, and inside a replica of the ship named after this Chakota Navy. That's correct, a U.S. naval ship. So how does a hometown boy come to become part of the Navy's fleet as well as American history? This exhibit tells that story, the story of a hero named Paul Henry Carr.
The first part of the exhibit, it's broken down into three sections. The first part deals with the life of Paul Carr as he was in Chakota growing up. And so we have some artifacts from his youth, his letter jacket when he was a high school football player, had a guitar that he played when he was a kid, learned to pick a little bit.
The back part of the wall is dedicated to the Battle of Lady Gulf, the one in which Carr died. One Navy admiral used the story of Paul Carr at the Naval Service Warfare Center.
And he said that Paul Carr exhibited what he looked for in any sailor is that they stay on their station doing their job to the bitter end. And the motto of the ship that was named after Paul is courage, will, and determination. And Paul Carr fought in the battle, stayed at his gun. He was a gun captain to the end when he was not able to fight. He actually died there aboard ship before it sank.
The Navy posthumously awarded Carr the Silver Star and other prestigious medals, and they named a guided missile frigate after him, the USS Carr.
The U.S. Navy was gracious enough to loan us some artifacts from the ship after it was decommissioned. We have the quarterdeck ship's bell, we have some of the ship's china, and we have some expended shell casings from the 6-barrel Gatling gun called the Sea Whiz they gave us some of that to display as well.
Paul Carr's niece says this exhibit has educational components to it, but when kids come here, she wants them to know what a real hero looks like.
The Spider-Mans in these, they come and go with faddish, but this is a real hero, one that they can really attach to, one they can read about in school, it's in their books.
And be proud that we can learn through this exhibit that faced with overwhelming odds and difficult obstacles, we can stay and do our duty and our job, even if we may not feel like we have it in us at the time. And because of Paul Carr's heroism, in this little corner of Oklahoma, the American flag still shines brightest of all. That was really, excuse me, a joy to write that story, and the other one too. It's the creative outlet for me to sit down and write the stories and try to do the subject matter justice. The Navy has a particularly special place in my heart. My dad served in World War II in the Army, and my father-in-law, who just passed away in January, spent 30 years in the Navy, and my youngest son, who will be a junior in high school next year, has set the goal to go to the Naval Academy in his honor. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. He knows it'll be tough, and he's got a backup plan, but I think he'll make it. We also get asked all the time, where's your favorite place to eat? And we get some of our best ideas from viewers who will send us emails and stop me when I'm out and about shopping or places such as this. They'll come up and say, hey, did you know about this place? It's been there 20 years or what have you. And so we always like to tell people, you can email us is the best way to do it. And the discoveroklahoma@travelok.com is the email that everyone on the staff gets it. And we have a huge Excel spreadsheet that we keep in the office. That's one of my duties, to keep track of stories that have aired and story ideas, and we have them divided up into sections of Oklahoma as well. But the bottom line is people, they want to eat where the locals eat. So recommendations from the locals are sometimes hidden gems and what I call must-eat there kind of places. So as I said, I get asked that quite a lot. Generally speaking, the show we do 39 to 42 original shows a year. So we do get our best ideas from viewers with emails and what have you. I like things that are also off the beaten path. One of my other favorite stories was a zip line in Davis, Oklahoma. It's called Air Donkey Zip Line. And although I don't do too well on the water, I love anything having to do with aviation. I've flown in an F-4 and an F-14. I actually jumped out of a plane once, sober, years ago. But I had a blast doing that story. The longest stretch, it's 6 different sections. The longest one was 1,800 feet. So you're flying, when you go participate in the Air Donkey Zip Line, there in Sulphur and Davis, in that area, you're literally ziplining through the Arbuckle Mountains. So you're ziplining through millions of years of history. And I remember on the 1,800-foot stretch, I extended my body because I wanted to go faster. And of course, I have a helmet on, but I also had a GoPro. So I'm trying to lean over so I can get good video. So I'm holding on. And I looked down. And it was just one of those surreal moments where there were deer running through the trees. And they literally stopped and looked up at me with the look on their face like, "What are you doing, man?" But I just remembered seeing eye to eye with a deer, and it was just amazing. Then I realized I better slow down or I'm not going to stop. So, but it's one of my favorite stories. So in general, what do tourists want to see beyond the obvious attractions? The hard part is looking for the little things that might be overlooked. Even the weird, junky art guy who doesn't represent the best of a town will bring people to town. We've done some stories, and I'll say, we're actually coming to your town to do a story on such and such, and they'll go, "Oh, no." It's like, well, no, it brings people to town, and then they'll call later and say, since that story aired, we've been inundated with phone calls and what have you. So the top reasons people come to Oklahoma are scenic drives, restaurants, historic sites, outdoor recreation, shopping, museums. And one of my favorite museums has to be the Stafford Air and Space Museum in Weatherford. If you've never been, this is an amazing place. And again, I grew up being a NASA geek, and I still love all things NASA, space, and aviation. And a few years back, I went out and actually interviewed General Stafford, who's from there, of course, and he has the clout and ability to get whatever he wants for the museum. And I would put this on a Smithsonian level museum. I mean, in that museum, they actually have the Saturn V booster rocket that shot him into space. It's not a replica, it's the real Saturn booster. Now, they do have some replicas, of course, but they have a lot of the real deal in there. And after we had interviewed him, he was kind enough to offer to take my videographer and I and a few other people to lunch. And even though I've had the pleasure of interviewing and still do a lot of film actors and a lot of big names in the entertainment business, I'm still like a 5-year-old kid around those kind of people, or someone in the military. That's when I get starstruck. And he was talking about someone had come over and asked him for an autograph, and the pen didn't work, and he started talking about the hundreds of thousands of dollars that NASA had spent to create and engineer and design a fountain pen that wrote in 0 gravity. So I asked him, I said, "Well, General Stafford, what did the Russians use during that day?" And he looked at me with this dry sense and he said, "Pencils." Good to know, good to know. I'm glad, that's a true story. I'm glad it still works. I hesitate to use the word Russia in anything anymore, so. One thing I love to remind people that tourism, like the film industry, is business. The film industry, I love to tell people, is a bottom line business. Well, tourism is business. It's the 3rd largest one in the state. So I just got some new stats, which I'll read for you very quickly, and then I'll open it up for some questions. In the calendar year 2016, 22.7 million visitors came to Oklahoma, which was up from 21.8 million in 2015. And that actually goes against the national trend, which shows a lot of places were down in 2016. So total direct travel spending in Oklahoma just a few years back was $8.9 billion. Since 2014, real travel spending in the state has increased over 2.1%, and direct travel generated employment was over 95,000 just a few years back. So tourism impacts all 77 counties. And last fiscal year, state parks received over 12 million visitors, and 1.5 million stayed in a state lodge, a cabin, or a campground. People often ask me what's my favorite state park. I've been to all of them except for maybe about 3. I mean, I love Beaver's Bend, and I just did a story that'll air in a few weeks on Great Plains State Park, which is just west of the Wichita Mountain Refuge down by Lawton. And this just really thrills me, but if you talk to the park manager at Beaver's Bend State Park and the park manager at Great Plains State Park, when you go through their parking lot, and even on days where there's a lot of campers out, over 40, sometimes 50% have Texas tags. So people, especially in Beaver's Bend, will drive up from Texas, so they spend the money, and it stays here. And we're going to keep on doing that. So with that, I do want to just open it up for some questions, and I'll be happy to answer any questions about Discover Oklahoma, or movies too, for that matter. And we'll see if we can. If I can answer it for you. Yes, sir.
Do you work hand in hand with the group that tries to bring more movies here to be made in Oklahoma?
I actually used to be the director of the Oklahoma Film and Music Office. I was for 5 years, and then this is going back. When my daughter was born, actually, she was born with a lot of health problems. They were pretty severe. So I stepped down as the director, and they kept me on as another position as a field representative. So yes, part of that, the main thrust of that office is to bring people here, but you got to have financial incentives. And right now, Oklahoma does have very good film incentives. We're at least in the top 10, but you got to be competitive. Locations are important, but again, when the producer looks at a location, they're going to look at what incentives will that state offer. And I will say it's amazingly competitive. We were. Back when I was the director, and back because of budget cuts back then, at one point I was the only employee in the film office. And I'd worked with a movie called Elizabethtown. It's directed by Cameron Crowe, and it starred Orlando Bloom and Kirsten Dunst. And they originally were going to come to the state and only shoot one scene at the Murrow Building, at the Oklahoma City National Memorial, the survivor tree specifically. Because part of the movie is Orlando Bloom taking his dad's ashes on a road trip across country. They had been a little bit estranged, so this was his way to get back in touch with his dad, even though his dad had passed. So the location manager contacted me and said, we need to come to Oklahoma City and shoot just for one day, probably about 4 hours, one scene at the survivor tree. So I set up all the meetings, and I convinced him to let me read part of the script. And on part of the script, there is this road trip that Orlando does across country. And so the next day, when we met for breakfast, I said, look, you can shoot a lot more here than you're doing. He said, what do you mean? I said, you got stuff that they were going to shoot in another state that they was going to double for other states. And I said, well, you can do that here. You're coming here anyway. So he said, well, like, give me an example. So I said, you have a lot of scenes that are, quote, driving through Kansas. I said, do you want Rolling Hills, Kansas, or Flat, Kansas? And he laughed. He goes, well, just take me to one of them. So I took him just south of Okarche, not that far from Oklahoma City. And as we're driving out there, he's like, okay, this is great. I like this. I mean, he got out his video camera, his still camera, and at one point I just pulled over and rolled down the window and went, Kansas. There you go. And and he and I have become friends. We still talk several times a year. And they ended up staying for 4.5, almost 5 days, and shot a ton of other film here. There's a scene in the movie where Orlando Bloom, it's from the inside of the car, but it says, welcome to Kansas. Well, that was shot just south of Okarche. So it was great the day they shot that scene. The Highway Patrol, of course, they were with us, and one of the PR guys with the Highway Patrol was with me, and he thought it was funny because he's getting phone calls from people going, why is there a welcome to Kansas sign south of Okarche? Because you were drunk and you drove too far, that's why. So, but yes, that's the main thrust of what the film office does, is to recruit not only films, but it can be a national commercial. We do get a lot of calls saying, hey, we want to shoot a commercial there, or we're going to shoot a documentary there, or sometimes it was a reality TV show or what have you. So some people do call, but you got to go out and bring business in. Yes, ma'am. Right now, of course, that's way above my pay grade, but from what I've been told, everything is fine. That may change at any moment down the road. The show has a very loyal following, and any email that we get, I will tell you this, that compliments the story saying, hey, my business has increased 25% or what have you, we keep all those emails. Over the years, we will put together, the executive producer does, I don't, but we'll put together a report and say, here's the reaction from the stories over the last 5 years. And they do a big presentation. So we have a lot of state senators and representatives who love the show because it helps their constituents. So until they tell me to stop, I'm going to keep showing up for work. Oh, yes, ma'am. Or yes, sir. Well, when you say project, I think of other things, but I just shot a story. Well, okay, here's some. Some people may look at this as a simple thing, but here's what I found. I did a story at an Italian restaurant in Enid recently. I had heard of it, but had never eaten there, and it's called Napoli's. The owner was born and raised in Albania. His father was in the restaurant business. He had been cooking since he was, I think he told me 10 years old, but has always cooked Italian food. And needless to say, I mean, I joke about being an Italian from McAllister, but it's true. My dad was full-blood Italian and was first generation here in the United States. So I am very particular about, well, food in general, but Italian food specifically. And we did a story, we shot it 2 weeks ago, yesterday, and I was blown away. I mean, I watched him cook in the kitchen, and if you watch how a chef cooks, that gives away a lot. So my videographer was shooting his camera. I was shooting video on my phone and still photos, and I just watched his technique and what he was doing. And when we sit down to eat, I was amazed at how good the food is. I mean, that was exciting for me. I'm actually working on a story where if my wife will give me permission, and the insurance is up to date, I may get to actually parachute again. And the last time I did that, I was single, and so it's given me pause, if you will, but we've discussed it, and I honestly don't know if I'll do it yet because, yeah, you know, as you get older, you have to consider such things, but we'll see what happens. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. If it does happen, and if you hear screaming coming from Southwest Oklahoma some Thursday afternoon, that'll be me. So, yes, ma'am. Well, when you say revenue, again, that's kind of above my pay grade because we look at the lower scale of things. I think right now Oklahoma does a wonderful job in promoting what they have here. We also, a lot of people don't realize, we have a large amount of tourists who come from overseas who are fascinated with the Western culture. And I know through the years there have been those who kind of wanted to distance themselves from that, but that's who we are. And I think they need, this is my personal opinion, need to embrace that more. I mean, people from Germany and Japan and China, they're fascinated with the Western culture. So, I mean, the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum is a prime example of the tourists who come through there. They're fascinated with that culture. And that's one of the things I take pride in, that we all take pride in who work on the show, is to maybe elevate businesses, tourism-based businesses that may not have enough money to advertise on their own. And so that's why it truly is a pleasure and a privilege to do a story on these mom and pop places that they work hard. I see the passion. I see them putting in 70, 80-hour weeks to put out an excellent product and to promote as best they can. And then we do a story, and inevitably, in my coming up on 10 years with the show, inevitably when the story airs, their business increases, and it usually stays that way. So we're happy to be a part of that. Yes, sir.
In your opinion,
okay.
Is Oklahoma in the south, the southwest? Where are we?
Okay, why is it the stuff they put in a pothole is darker than the rest of the road? Okay, Honestly, it is split down the middle. I've talked to people who, again, are in bigger positions than I am, and it's really split down the middle. I've found myself referring to Oklahoma as the Southwest. Midwest, I don't think quite works, but your guess will be as good as mine. If you find out, please let me know if you know the official word on that. Well, thank you all again. It is always a pleasure to come up here, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day and a great rest of the week. Thank you very much.
In honor of your speaking today, Dino, we are going to take this book, Call Me Oklahoma, to Celia Elementary, and it will be enjoyed by the children for many years to come. As you have found, I left you a business card. I'm a fly fisherman. It's quite a coincidence that you did that story, so if you want to get away with my wife and your wife and away from your kids and our kids and go fishing and maybe have a touch of wine, we're all for that. Okay. And we can't ever go either, so we have to make excuses. Okay. I'd like to ask Tim Colwell to come forward now, and he has an announcement for us.
Thank you, soon-to-be ex-President John. I'm here to represent our incoming president, President Mike Homan, who asked me to chair our new Rotary Program Committee. And I just wanted to tell you about our first program on the 12th of July. Well, first of all, Mike instructed his program committee to, we need to be looking at some programs this year of more national and regional significance and more programs of diversity. So that's our challenge, and we're thrilled that our inaugural program is going to feature Sally Smith. Sally is the CEO of Buffalo Wild Wings in Minneapolis. She is recognized as one of those amazing CEOs who broke through the glass ceiling and has just really made a name for herself. So she's going to be here on the 12th, and so we're going to have some fun with this, and you're going to be hearing more about this next week. But we're really trying to boost our membership this coming year, so an anonymous Rotarian donated close to $1,000 in $20 Buffalo Wild Wings gift cards. And so if you bring a prospective guest to that meeting, your name will go into a drawing for one of these gift cards, and we'll tell you more about those details. But next week on your tables, we're going to start that sign-up process. We just need a plan for how many guests to plan for, because part of our meal that day is going to be Buffalo Wild Wings. Okay, so
all right.
So let's plan on that. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be a great Rotary year, and we look forward to it. So, President John,
thank you.
Thank you,
thank you, Tim. That's one way to get the whole room to cry, is to bring some of the hot wings, right? I'd like to ask Catherine to come forward. We have our 50-50 drawing. That's how we raise money for our international fund. Again, every dollar that you donate to this connects you directly to Bill Gates and the eradication of polio, so we appreciate your donations.
So, President, we're up to $536. So whoever draws a ticket picks a card. If you win, you get half that pot. So I'll medal that.
Well, Dino's got tickets, so let's let Monica draw.
Oh, well, that's okay. She'll pick a winner. Thank you. Miguel, are you listening today? Just making sure. Okay, the number is 1756446.
6446. Present?
Miguel, did you check? 1756446.
Going once. Going twice. Miguel has it.
No way. Hey, you're good. I don't know if you're that good, though. I mean, twice, I don't know about this. All right. Let's try it. Well, you know, we have another sweatshirt and T-shirt, hoodie from IBA. So I guess if you see he and his significant other, they're both going to be dressed alike now. So, okay, here we go. Pick a good one.
Oh.
Jack. All right, well, thank you so much. Do what? Just draw, okay, all right. So our generous guy here said we could draw another ticket, and thank you, Luann, again, and thank the IBA committee for these gifts. So here we go.
Now this is for what?
This is going to be for this. Awesome.
Oh, for some swag from...
Some swag.
Okay.
All right, here we go. The number is 1756428.
428.
Miguel, if you have it, just don't say anything, okay? And then we'll just draw again. Oh, looky here.
Oh, we have a winner.
Winner, winner, hot wing dinner. Cliff, what are you going to do with these?
Wear them since I just got recruited to the committee.
There you go. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much. Don't know if you guys are paying attention to your daily emails from RAM. Anybody watching those? But I wanted to give you a little update for those that may not be getting that. They left from California. This is Bob McKenzie and a crew of 3 on the RAM polio ride. And they left Saturday afternoon, and they're almost straight due north of us now in Fort Scott, Kansas, roughly. So they're making great time. They're ahead of last year's pace. They have a great crew and a great 3 other riders besides our own Bob. Late last night, they encountered a thunderstorm in El Dorado, Kansas, and we have a short video, I think, on that. But they actually had to stop for 45 minutes. So they had a 60-mile, sorry, short clip. If you're out in, where was that, in Oklahoma? No, that's actually Kansas. Yeah. You know, they don't even have bar ditches. You have nowhere to go. So they had 60-mile-an-hour winds and heavy lightning and rain, and it's my understanding that Bob got a little tired of waiting, so they just rode through it. So watch your emails and your statuses on them. Bob and his team, through their efforts this year, have raised certainly awareness for eradication of polio. As we saw at the convention, that's a very big emphasis for them as well. And he says he's responsible, his team and their efforts, for raising $500,000 for polio this year. So again, reminders of our upcoming programs. Next week is the Steak Day. July the 5th is the inauguration of President-elect Mike to be president. And July the 12th, we have Sally Smith from Buffalo Wild Wings. Go out and tell everybody about Rotary and bring guests the next 2 weeks. There'll be great programs. We're adjourned.